Good afternoon. Today is 3rd of June 2019, and this is a regular meeting of Glendale Water and Power Commission. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
President Avanesian?
Here.
Commissioner Carrasco?
Here.
Commissioner Kadikian?
Here.
Commissioner La?
Present.
Commissioner Watson?
Here.
Let's go to consent item.
2A, approval of the minutes for the May 6, 2019 meeting.
Commissioners, do you have any comment?
No.
No.
So I'll move to approve them.
Yes.
I second.
Okay, thank you. So it is approved. Let's go to the next item, please.
3, GWP Commission staff comments.
Do you have any comments?
I'd like to call out all the staff at GWP for the great job that they did this weekend at the tailgate. I don't know if any of the other commissioners were able to attend. But one thing I particularly liked at the event was they had a model built of how power comes from a power plant to your home. And there were multiple stations at the event where people could really see how power is produced and then transmitted and ultimately comes to their business or their residence. I just think it's so important that people understand the whole process of how power is actually delivered. And I thought that the models and the stations did a really good job of telling that story. I even noticed there was a little boy who looked to me like he was maybe preschool age, maybe kindergarten, first grade, very young child, and he was actually tracing it with his finger and, watching it move from place to place. And so it was very engaging. It was very educational, but it was fun at the same time. So I enjoyed it. I think it was a great event, and I really applaud the staff for putting that on. The more that we can tell the story of how you do the work that you do, the better. So that's my comment.
I'll add that I also was there on Saturday and was impressed with the way everything was laid out and the tremendous amount of information that was displayed to the public, and I share the Commissioner's compliments to your staff for putting on a really good presentation. Very informative.
That was our first one, and hopefully the first of many to come. But thank you all very much.
I do also have a comment. These last couple of weeks, I'm in Adams Hill. I want to commend the power folks, the employees there, who did a tremendous job of providing and doing some outreach and letting us know there were going to be some tedious work. As you know, Adams Hill is pretty tight to begin with. You can only park on one side of the street. Provided plenty of notification with little traffic impacts in terms of people knowing where you folks were going to be. And so I just commend the crew for doing a great job.
Yeah, thank you. That was a very important job, especially for you coming this summer. We want to make sure that the air conditioning stays on. We've had some problems in that area in the past. Last summer was especially bad, so we were able to get out. We had the slight inconvenience of an outage, but the fellas finished it about 3.5 hours earlier than we had planned on, so we were able to get out of there. But I appreciate that, and hopefully we've got that area settled down for the upcoming heat that's inevitable for the summer.
Okay, thank you very much for the reports, and thank you, Glendale Water and Power staff, for doing that interesting thing. Mm-hmm. So let's go to the next item, which are reports.
4A, legislative update.
Leo will be providing you with the update.
Well, good afternoon, Commissioners, Chairperson Avanesian, and members of the public. My name is Leo Zion, here to present a legislative update. I believe the PowerPoint is in front of you, so I'll just get started. So we have a few key energy bills that I want to highlight and some water bills. First, Governor Newsom declared a state of emergency for wildfire, as many of you know, and that also started a new commission, the Wildfire Commission, that was planning on presenting a report to the legislature with many options in terms of liability, looking at CPUC reform, possibly enforcement division within the CPUC to assist the wildfire mitigation plans, and also looking at vegetation management, and last but not least, looking at wildfire victim compensation or recovery. A few other key energy bills we have, SB 772, which is the long duration of bulky item procurement, which means that means the pump storage procurement with 2,000 to 4,000 megawatts, and with that, that would be for CalASO members. GWP would be excluded from that. However, that bill did not pass, and it's going to be a 2-year bill. And then we have SB 288, which is the Self-Generation Bill of Rights, which is standardizing the process of interconnections. That bill is in the Assembly now to be discussed. And we have AB 1208. I think we are, there you go. Okay, we have AB 1208, which is the exemption of the utility users tax on solar production. And finally, we have AB 17992, which looks at the natural gas price volatility. Next, we're going to cover some water bills. We have the Executive Order N1019, which mandated the Natural Resource Agency in Cal EPA to look at the water resiliency to see what California needs are. And with that, we have the water fix, which I'm sure many of you have heard about, the Delta tunnels. The governor proposed a single tunnel versus the 2-tunnel that was originally proposed. And then there's also a bill, AB 217, which talks about a water tax, which is about 50 cents per connection, which will be included on everyone's bill. That's to assist failing water districts in assisting them to pay for their infrastructure and making sure they have clean, safe drinking water. Number of bills, key water bills, we have SB 414. This is a Small System Water Authority Act. This helps failing water system to consolidate with water systems that are doing well around in the surroundings. And then we have SB 669. This is the Safe Drinking Water Fund. This is allocating some surplus fund from the general fund to be allocated to failing water systems. And then we have SB 134. This is the Water Loss Performance Standards. And then we have AB 1180, Recycled Water. This is to prevent backflow prevention standards. And then we have AB 60, which is to standardizing the accuracy of standard water meters. And then finally, we have AB 1414, which is actually streamlining water reporting that they have, that the state requires. And we have, in the federal legislature, as you know, there's always tension between California and the Trump administration. So there is a lot of tension, and SB 1 was introduced by Atkins to make sure if there's any environmental or public health or Workers' Defense Act of 2019, if the federal agency put on some kind of regulation that has to do with the environment, California can be a standalone kind of. They have their own standards that they can push forward, kind of having a state mandate control. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Can you please expand on the AB 1208, the utility user tax exemption for clean energy? Explain that a little bit.
Sure. So there was a bill in 2013 that was passed that says any production of solar, that there is no utility users tax. You cannot tax solar production. So that exemption is extended for another 7 years. So we won't be allowed to tax solar production within our customers.
Is that a utility solar production or individual?
Residential.
Yeah, I have a question, and I'm not sure who the right person to answer is, but what is the city and the department's process for evaluating these bills, and what steps do we take to express the city's position on each of these bills, both in Sacramento and in Washington?
So, members of the commission, Leo is our direct legislative analyst and regulatory analyst in water and power, and then he coordinates with two main agencies, the California Municipal Utilities Association, of which we are a member. They represent virtually all water and electric, publicly owned water and electric utilities in California. And here more locally is the Southern California Public Power Authority. And we also, on the water, that's for power entities, public power entities in Southern California. And we also, we use the Association of Water Associations, both in California, which is the one we primarily use. So coordinating with them, and they have large legislative staff. That's what their primary function is, at least in the case of CUMA and Aqua. Their main function is to lobby. So we have close coordination with them. We stay up on the bills. If we are going to make a statement, whether we write a letter of support or opposition, we will talk to them, and then those go to the mayor, and then the mayor decides to send that or not send that. But certainly if there's any recommendations or thoughts on anything from the commission, we would be happy to follow through on those and then vet those with the city council. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much for your report.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
4B, budget presentation.
It's making her way up.
Good afternoon, President Ovanesian, members of Commission. Today on the agenda, we have the fiscal year 1920 proposed budget. And in the proposed budget, we will discuss Glendale Water and Power departmental dashboards and the capital improvement program projects. So for our departmental dashboards, for the different categories in the budget for appropriation, there are salaries and benefits, and the total salaries and benefits for water and power in fiscal year 1920 for the proposed budget is $49,614,623, and the maintenance and operation $2,063,891,461. The capital outlay budget requested appropriation is $3,981,100, and capital improvement total project appropriation request is $32,440,000. And then you have the general fund transfer for $20,277,055. So that brings the total budget for Glendale Water and Power to $370,204,239. Also, for our personnel, the total personnel count for GWP is 343.38 for fiscal year 1920. That consists of our full-time employees, 319 full-time employees, and hourly full-time equivalents. In addition, for you, we have here some departmental highlights that we wanted to highlight for our upcoming fiscal year. Analyze and develop a new sustainability division section in the city. Initiate and complete an electrical services master plan. Upgrade water AMI to new IP-based system, and lay the groundwork for supporting new city smart city technologies, and implement a new and augment existing clean energy program, including demand response, energy efficiency, and solar programs. On this next slide, we have our various funds within Glendale Water and Power, and we have included for you a summary of the appropriation requests. So we begin with the Electric Public Benefit Fund. The proposed budget for 1920 is $9,016,367. That is a 2.5% decrease from the prior year. We also have established a new fiber optic fund in fiscal year 1920, and the appropriation request for the maintenance and operation portion of the fund is $220,313. Moving on, we have the Electric Works Revenue Fund, which is our maintenance and operation budget for electric utility. And the proposed budget for 1920 is $267,933,674, and that represents a 10% increase from the prior year. Moving on is the Electric Depreciation Fund. That's where our capital improvement projects and capital outlay is appropriated. And the budget request for 1920 is $21,086,300, and that also represents a 64% increase from prior year. The Electric Customer Capital Fund is basically the fund that is used for customer-paid projects, and the Electric Customer Repair Fund, that's in the instances where there are some repairs to be done caused by damages to our infrastructure, and that is a $50,000 request. Moving on, we have the Waterworks Revenue Fund, and that is the water utilities maintenance and operation budget, and the appropriation request for 1920 is $56,462,785, and that represents also an increase of 2.5%. Water Depreciation Fund, that is also where water utilities capital improvement program and capital outlay items are appropriated, and the requested budget for 1920 is $11,834,000, which represents an increase of 37.6%. Water Customer Capital Fund, similar to the Electric Customer Capital Fund, is for water customer paid projects, and then the Water Customer Repair Fund, similar to the electric one, is for repairs to our infrastructure caused by damage.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Would you please explain why some items are increased and there is one decrease? What was the...
Yes, of course. Would you like me to go through by each fund, or is there a particular fund?
Maybe I can help a little bit here. So we'll zero in on the, you'll see the revenue fund and the depreciation fund on electric. So the 10% is essentially additional cost for purchase of gas and power. So as you may recall, for over a year, we have diverted the landfill gas to flares as a result of air quality issues we've had. So we've had to buy additional gas to make up for that loss. That's a big part of that. We've also found some increasing opportunities on the market to buy, especially green power, and so we have, our budget has gone up a little bit there. Plus, we are very concerned about the summer. As you know, I talked to you about the condition of Grayson. If we get into Q3 and have to buy power, it will be at a premium, and it's the highest it is. So we padded it a little bit to make sure that we had enough power during those critical periods. The depreciation fund, or excuse me, the depreciation fund, that's the capital construction budget. So we have a 5-year plan that's part of our cost of service analysis, and so we fully intended to ramp that up. A lot of that is, though, pole replacement and some wildfire mitigation measures as well. So we are hit with some of the ramifications of wildfire legislation that you heard Leo talk about earlier. We have, we have areas in what are called the tier 2 and 3 areas that we need to take some additional precautions. So we're looking at different kinds of wire. We're looking at different kinds of poles. We have additional clearing that we need to do. So that budget went up a little bit, but primarily it is that we just began, as part of our COSA, cost of service analysis, put enough money aside to continue to ramp up our regular infrastructure upgrade program. When you go down to water, you see again in the depreciation fund, that's the capital fund. So we did a master plan for water with the intent of slowly ramping up the amount of money that we put into the basic infrastructure for water. So this is right in tune with our master plan and our COSA. So we jumped it up to where we feel comfortable in the $11 to $12 million a year range. It's a little bit of a science in this particular area. You want to try to get as much infrastructure repaired each year as you possibly can, but we have limits on how much we can actually do, both in getting the projects out and in tearing up the city at any one time. So we try to be very conscious of that as well. So those are the real big ticket items that you see there. If you have any questions on those, I'd be happy to.
I do. Steve, what would you say, just due to wildfire mitigation, percentage-wise, that we had to increase that budget
I think
for?
as Alina goes through, she's going to get into details on the capital programs, and she'll have a line item of what we set aside for that. We did some, it's new to us, so we did some initial analysis, but I think she's got an individual project for that. Also, I did want to mention on the electric capital, another big part of that is the seed money to start our fiber optic program. So if you look up, you'll see the line for fiber optic. That's where the program is now. As you know, we're putting into a full-fledged commercial-based program. So we need to do some infrastructure work for the fiber. They don't have the reserves, so the electric fund is going to loan them some money to do the construction work, and then as revenue begins to come in, the fiber optic fund will pay back the electric fund.
Thank you.
And Alina has a line item on that as well.
Thank you very much for the explanation.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on is our capital improvement program, summary of projects. We have two separate categories for capital improvement program for electric utility and water utility. This slide represents the project with a multiple funding source. We have the Howard Building tenant improvement project, which is going to be funded in the electric depreciation fund and the water depreciation fund, as both utilities are beneficiaries of the facility. Moving forward is the projects with single funding source. As explained, we have the electric depreciation fund, so I'm going to highlight the projects in the electric depreciation fund. So emergencies, the top projects prior to the one being in bold, transmission line insulator, they are annual programs that receive funding every year as part of the appropriation. So we have the emergency system improvement, an annual program, and the proposed budget is $200,000 for that. Feeder conversion at Tropico substation, $800,000. Fiber plant implementation, this is what Steve was mentioning. It's $5.9 million, and that's for fiber infrastructure. And cable replacement, $500,000. Deteriorated pole replacements, $200,000. Installing street lights, the annual program, $250,000, and transformer purchases, $200,000. Moving on now, we are requesting appropriation in the following projects. They're all new projects to the electric utility. So this is the transmission line insulator replacement for $300,000, pole replacement of fiber for $300,000, and wildfire mitigation, $350,000. Distribution expansion, $300,000. Substation capacity banks is $400,000. I'm sorry, I think that's $100,000. My eyes going. Electrical services master plan for $400,000, and facility security and landscaping for $140,000. Moving on to more new projects in electric depreciation fund is Icon Solutions for $280,000. OC Soft Pi Historian Enterprise for $1.5 million. Unit number 8 gas turbine spare overhaul for $800,000. These are all power plant projects. Unit ABC control wiring for $300,000. Unit 9 compressor for $100,000. Unit number 4 air preheater overhaul for $500,000, and power plant fire alarm panel replacement for $170,000, and Unit 5 superheater tube replacement for $1.5 million. And then we have another project, Unit number 2 turbine generator overhaul for $2.9 million, bringing the total for the electric depreciation fund projects to $17,990,000. And as you can see, we also have the electric customer paid capital fund, as we discussed before, for $2 million. And that concludes the electric utility capital improvement projects.
Alina, if you go back, right there, there we go. So let me just point out that these are all on the books as potential, especially those last two. The thought is that regardless, we likely won't do those. At this point in time, there's an analysis that is continuing to go on, but we won't throw good money after bad, and it is unlikely that those repairs will even make the difference that we need them to make. So we'll be very, very judicious in spending that money. The rest of them, obviously, Unit 9, when you see that, that's a unit that's going to stay, regardless of what the future holds. So a lot of those are just kind of maintenance for the general power plant, but the big ticket items will be scrutinized very closely. But we do have them here as a budget placeholder, if you will.
Could you explain what the second item is, the soft PI historian enterprise?
Yeah, I think, Michelle, do you want to explain? Michelle Nall, who's our IS expert, she'll come up and talk to you about those.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Michelle Nall with the Business Systems Support Manager for Glendale Water and Power. The OSI Soft is a software we currently have in place. It stores all the SCADA data. What we want to do is expand this program, and it will absorb other areas of data like our AMI infrastructure, some of our system data. We'll be able to do real-time analysis of transformers, of voltage. It basically expands this program, and it creates dashboards for executives or other users to see real-time data in action. So it monitors that, and it also sends alerts out if there's anything, overheating, or if they see any issues with some of their equipment. So this expands it significantly, because right now we're just using SCADA data, and we can monitor the transformer loads right now, but with the additional electric AMI meter data, we can expand it a lot more.
Excuse me, what does that OSI stands for? OC?
Oh, I don't know, it's the name of the company. It's called OSI Soft, and it's basically a PI historian. So it's a huge data warehouse that you can store multiple data points, and you can use that data to do all types of different analysis.
Okay, it's a name.
Yeah, it's a name.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, thank you. Would you say that's a risk mitigation type of?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for the explanation.
Okay, we're moving on to Water Depreciation Fund. These, the list of projects before you are for the water capital improvement projects. And again, the top projects not bolded are projects that are annual programs we request appropriation every year for them. AMI modernization for $1,650,000, Glorieta well replacement for $850,000, potable water tank rehab program $350,000, pipeline management program being the biggest project in the water depreciation fund for $4 million, potable hydrants for $150,000, pump replacement program for $1,160,000, and site repairs at various locations for $250,000, valve replacement for $350,000, and then the facility security landscape for $240,000, and water system optimization for $1 million. as I go down through the list of remaining projects, these are projects that are new for the Water Depreciation Fund. We have the backup power program for $400,000, water quality enhancement program for $200,000, and wood roof replacement program for $200,000, and that brings the total in water depreciation for total CIP projects, $10,800,000. And then we also have the water customer paid capital fund for $1,500,000.
So in a similar exercise we did for electric, so the big ticket items on that page, if we could go back. So the AMI modernization, that's the automated metering infrastructure. Those are our meters. The water meters have, they weren't as well tested in the industry as the electric meters, so they haven't been as seamlessly operated as seamlessly as the electric meters have. So there's some upgrades that are required, and they've modernized some of the component parts that are going to help us. They've been great, don't get me wrong. It's just, it's a little bit different technology in that, you know, you're putting it on kind of a standard meter operation. It's in the ground versus up in the air, and so we've run into a couple different things, and we're going to fix those, and that's what that budget is. You can see the majority of the budget goes into the bread and butter of our operation. That's pipes. So since the day I got here, I said, you know, we will not let that part of our infrastructure down. So we will continue to put to upgrade pipes, to replace old, to upsize where we need to meet current demand. And also some of our pump stations. We pump a lot of water in Glendale, as you can just tell by the topography of Glendale. And so we want to make sure those pump houses and all of the equipment are operating as efficiently as possible. And so that kind of gets you where the real meat and potatoes of our water system budget is. So if you have any other questions, we'd be happy to answer those. We did the facility security and landscape, and this is really something that goes for both electric and water. So we've just got some very dated old landscaping, and since we sit in the middle of many of your very neighborhoods, and we are part of the neighborhood, we want to make sure that we're keeping up our end of the bargain, and our place looks as good as all your places do. So we're going to go through and do some work there, and obviously facility security has become just much more critical in this day and age, and especially as it pertains to utilities where you can wreak a lot of havoc. So we want to make sure that we've got as secure facilities as possible.
I appreciate the interest in improving the landscaping and appearance and security. But I'm just curious, I tend to notice little details sometimes. That's an ongoing item with the Water Depreciation Fund, but you indicated as a new item on the Electric Depreciation Fund.
Right. We had, because one of the things, water had a head start on that. And so one of the things was we were going through the droughts. We thought it would be good for us to practice what we preach and go through at least the water facilities and make sure that we were getting to drought tolerant and even zero-scape if we could. And then we followed that now with the electric operations as well. A lot of the electric substations especially have little or no landscaping, and that they do is pretty old and pretty bad shape. So we added them on this year, but water had the head start primarily from the conservation end. I think it's needed. Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, two more questions. The backup power program and the water quality enhancement programs, those are new. Maybe you can get some explanation on that?
Yes.
Well, let Alina, she's got the notes. We hope.
So water system optimization.
No, the backup power and the water quality, the two new ones.
Okay. Commissioner Kadikian, members of commission, the backup power program is a program that will install backup power system to various pump station facilities to provide power during the outages. So it's a new program for the water depreciation in the Water Depreciation Fund, and that's essentially what it's for, the purpose of the project.
Is this also part of the fire mitigation? Because this issue came up.
You can definitely tie the two together, because as those of you who kept up to date on what was happening in some of the most recent fires is you had electrical power that was being cut or damaged by the fire in order to try to mitigate the situation or prevent further damage. That, in fact, hit the pump station, so you didn't have the very water you needed to put the fire out. So right now, even without wildfire mitigation, we will be in situations where we'll get an outage, and that affects the pump station. And there's a lot of work that then goes into trying to back into the system and get the water up to where it needs to get up if we have any extended outage. But it really does tie in on that concept of the fire mitigation, where they ran into those very problems, which is we didn't have the water we needed to put out the fire because we had reduced or cut the electricity in order to try to mitigate further damage.
So we are adding a generator there?
No, I think it is, Mike, is it, you can go ahead and.
President Avanesi and members of the commission, Michael DeGhetto, Chief AGM for Water. This will be just one unit. We're going to strategically put them at pump stations to get the water to flow all the way up. So this will just be the first part of that program. And I think, in addition to the wildfires, the reason we don't have these now, I'll say it is because we have Grayson. And even like during the earthquake, I talked to staff that's been here since Northridge, and they're like, there was never an issue. And so in addition to the wildfire issue, if it's like just that one circuit getting turned off, or if there's some issue with Grayson, we need to increase the reliability at our pump stations. So that's also what part of this project's for.
It's good to have with the condition of Grayson. It's more vital than ever, but it's always good to have, period. And so this will become a new ongoing program, at least until we finish up the initial facilities that we want to get. And Mike, might as well go ahead with the next one.
And the water quality enhancement program is some equipment that we're going to put into some of the tanks and reservoirs that allow us to mix the water, but simultaneously monitor the chloramine residual in the tank and then generate chloramines on site to keep that residual, which is the disinfectant that's in the water that keeps it safe, at the optimal level in the tank and the reservoir. And that'll be a program as well. And we'll do a couple of those per year.
Thank you. You have a question?
Yes, I do, actually. This is a larger sort of global question. Does the utility have the funds that it needs? Are the two of you satisfied, or your staff satisfied that you have the funds that you need to do the capital projects that you need to do to keep the water at an optimal level, both in terms of water quality and in terms of being able to deliver it?
Glendale Water and Power is in a very, very good financial position, every aspect of it. It wasn't always that way, but it clearly is today. And to be honest with you, we have more money than we have either time or men and women to do the work. So if I look out at Dan, but if we had Rigo Orozco, our superintendent, would tell you, there's not enough hours in a day or days in a week to complete the work that we actually could fund. So financially, you can rest assured we are in excellent shape from every aspect, from reserve aspect, from a capital aspect, from the way the bonding agencies look at us. So we're very proud of that. But to answer your question, absolutely.
Right. So when we look at these projects as they're listed out, there aren't projects that are falling off the bottom of that list because you don't have the money to do them.
Not because of money.
Right.
That's certainly not the issue.
Funding's not the issue.
Right.
So when we look at the priorities, we're seeing priorities based on actually wanting to get these projects done in terms of deliverability, in terms of reliability. It's not, we can afford to do this now, but we're going to put that big thing off until later because we can't afford to do it. Okay.
And you saw an item for electric to do a master plan. Water had already done a master plan, so that's the blueprint. You have your system is evaluated, it's assessed. You know the age. You know a pretty fair. You have a pretty fair assessment of the condition of that, and then you set your master plan, and then that master plan feeds into this budget as far as priorities go. Mm-hmm. So again, everything is prioritized, and it's just a matter of, as time lets us, we will do as much as we possibly can. But certainly financially, we have the wherewithal. And that's 2 straight years of COSAs and setting up funds. As you may recall, the last 2 fee schedules have included pay-as-you-go capital. So we wanted to try to reduce to the greatest extent possible utilizing bond funding for regular maintenance, especially regular maintenance. Now, if you get into something like building a reservoir, or building a power plant, or building a new substation, that might change. But for day-to-day maintenance, we wanted to get that on a what we call pay-go basis, and so that's where we were. So the whole COSA and the fee structure is all aimed at ensuring we have ample resources for capital programs.
That's good. You mentioned revenues, reserves. What % of the overall operating budget is in reserves, or what is the amount that you have in reserves?
We have over 1 year's operating expense in reserve. It's rather high, a little bit higher. A lot of bond agencies will like 6 to 8 months. We're a little high because of the condition of Grayson and the fact that we're never quite sure what might happen. And so we have a little bit higher reserves. The council reserve policies, they have set a policy, 125 million in electric and 11 million in water, and we're above those.
That's good. Another question, and I can't see here, in your total revenue, what % of that comes from consumer fees, and I assume the rest is in the form of grants? What's the breakdown in revenue?
Most of our money comes from our customers. So we don't do a lot of grants.
Okay.
We will occasionally come across something. We recently did a rather large grant for a recycled water project, but we don't have a lot of grant funding in water and power. The vast majority of our resources come from our customers.
Thank you.
A pure business model.
Thank you.
A question, just so that I understand the water system, the 2 large items that I'm looking at, I want to make sure I understand. The pipeline management program is the actual infrastructure, correct?
Correct.
And then the water system optimization is, for all intents and purposes, like pressure betterment.
Correct.
And things of that nature?
Correct.
Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question about pipeline. Are you replacing the pipelines or replacing the coating? And how you decide which part of pipeline you're going to replace or repair?
Most of the pipeline is being replaced in this program. We do occasionally do cleaning and lining, not as much, but the determining factor is that master plan I spoke of and the condition assessment that's within that. And so they'll pick sections of the city. So we'll know where things like pressure. Do we have ample pressure, not only for our customers, but for fire protection services? How old is the pipe in that area? Is it undersized? Are we having issues with just delivery? So all of those things were put into the master plan. From that master plan, then it gets plugged into this annual budget for pipeline management. And as we go down the list of priority areas, there's where we replace this area, this segment of pipe, this neighborhood, and each year we go through that exercise.
So when you're increasing the size of diameter of the pipe, you're changing the valves?
So, we have you'll see up there, so we have a regular valve replacement program, but as part of the project, old valves that need to be not only replaced but upsized. But when we change the diameter of the pipe for whatever reason, because water service to that area has changed since the pipe was installed, and you're looking at 60, 70, 80-year-old pipe, that may necessitate valves to be changed. But we also have a regular valve replacement program every year that goes through and replaces older valves, non-functioning valves, that kind of thing.
Do you have any technique to measure internal corrosion? Do you have, for example, ultrasonic technology to check the corrosion at the low point of the pipes, or do you have coupons, or?
Do you scope the pipes?
Yeah.
How do you?
How do you measure? Oh, he's here.
Oh, go ahead.
President Avanesian and members of the commission, honestly, the best way we see it is if there's a main break and we take out a section of the pipe, we see what's in it. We know that pipe, say, is part of a pipe that was installed in that neighborhood at one time, so we have a pretty good idea that the rest of the pipe probably looks like that. And then just anytime when we add new services or change the service lines, we'll do something usually called a hot tap that'll cut a coupon out of the side of the pipe, and then we take that coupon out and we look at it too. So it's really just visual inspection. So we have like a pretty good understanding of like the condition of all the pipes in all the neighborhoods or in all the areas.
So you're using coupons.
Yeah, coupons, and then just visually looking at a piece of the pipe when we take them out.
And age and type of pipe, you know, those are things that it doesn't take a whole lot of science to figure out. If we, you know, if we're looking at cast iron pipe that's 80 years old, pretty sure that you're going to have issues if you don't.
Actually, these days, technology is advanced, and really you can very accurately measure the corrosion rate. I mean, coupon is the older version.
Right.
But for us in Glendale, you know, what we find is our soil is actually not very corrosive at all. It's not hot soil, like we would call it. So even when we dig up mains, even after a break, the outside of the pipes are fine. They look brand new. It's really the internal.
We have mineral buildup and tuberculation on the inside.
Tuberculation.
That's where we have most of our problem.
Yeah. So, no, we have a very good understanding of the condition of the pipe in all the areas.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so being a person who receives coupons in the mail from Bed Bath & Beyond on a regular basis, I'm assuming that this is a new and novel use of the word for me. So what is a coupon?
Actually, it's a pretty old use of the word, but I guess for
Or it's an
for most-
archaic
yeah,
use,
yeah.
right, okay, so
But it's just a piece.
business.
It's a piece. It's a piece of the pipe.
Yeah.
it's like a slice, like a tree,
Yeah.
as if you
Or
were
it
slicing a
comes
tree.
out like a circle.
Yeah. It kind
Right,
of-
okay, that's how I am at a swatch.
Kind of like a swatch.
Except
Got
it's
it, okay.
metal and pretty heavy.
That's
and
what I was
dirty.
imagining, but I just wanted to check that out. That was
You got it.
a new use for me, thanks.
Yeah, and we run into troubles like, how long do we save that? And it's like, we'll have a big stack of them, and it's like, come on, no, we have to take a picture, say where it came from, and then, you know, dispose of it, so.
So what you're saying is it tends to be the insides of the pipes that are more affected than the
Here in
exteriors?
Glendale,
Yeah,
definitely.
in Glendale, yes.
Okay, interesting, thank you.
Thank you very much for explanation. Any question? Oh, yes.
Wood roof replacements in water for some of our buildings and reservoirs.
Any other questions or comments? I'd be happy to answer.
No, thank you very much.
This concludes our presentation for fiscal year 1920 proposed budget for Glendale Water and Power.
Thank you, Alina.
Thank you very much.
And I assume the wood roof replacements are not being replaced with more wood.
In some cases, we have, yeah. It's just
Really?
old wood, yeah. So it's okay. It's lasted a long, long time. It's just, I know in one case we had a failure, and it got us to a point where we wanted to be a little more proactive.
Fire department know about that?
I was going to call Craig up.
4C, strategic plan.
Craig Keenan to give you an update on the strategic
Yes.
plan.
Mr. President, Commissioners, my name is Craig Keenan, and I'm the Business Transformation and Marketing Administrator. If you recall, I was here a couple months ago, gave you an update on the new format for the plan, and this time I'm going to give you a quick overview, well, there's quite a few slides, of where we're at now. I'll cover the format again, but there's a lot more detail here. We'd like to get your input, maybe add some things. I've added a couple things based on your questions already, so. You can, so the new format, it's basically vision, mission, core values, and then we have 6 strategic areas of focus, and within those areas, we have a number of goals. As far as our vision, we'd like to be recognized as a trusted community partner with a reputation for excellence, reliability, exceptional customer service, innovation, and sustainability. Our mission, building upon more than 100 years of history, Glendale Water and Power shall provide safe and reliable water and electrical services for the citizens of Glendale in a cost-efficient, transparent, and sustainable manner. Our core values, these mirror the city's core values. We have excellence, integrity, honesty, trust, fairness, teamwork, respect, accountability, compassion, and cultural awareness. Typically, our strategic plan has a scoreboard. It's color-based. If the item is designated green, it means we're finished or we're ahead of schedule. If it's yellow, we're on track to meet our goal and expectations. Red means we're behind. So our first area of strategic area is affordability and responsibility, or fiscal responsibility. Under this, our statement is we shall strive to keep rates affordable while ensuring the ongoing financial stability of GWP. Our strategy number one is to actively monitor electric and water rates, compare to surrounding utilities, and report results to the executive team. Under this goal, we want to monitor the utilities around us and each customer class and compare our rates and provide that data to the executive team. And we have others here, monitor participation in Glendale Care. I know that as a question we've been asked, what % people actually participate in the program. It's been a difficult thing for utilities to measure because of the income guidelines that are used don't readily match up with census data and the like. But there are ways to do it. At one time, we were able to get data from the gas company that strictly for Glendale and see how many people they had participate in that kind of thing. But we're going to look into doing that. Another area, we have to develop some reports for financial. We just went to a new financial system, and the city did. And so we're going to have to develop some new reports. We used to get reports from city finance on a monthly basis on the status of our business activities. But we're going to work, Alina and I work to put together some new reports based on the new system. And then every 5 years we do cost of service studies. So that's in here to do a new electric and a new water cost of service study by 2023. In customer service is our biggest area. Under here we have 9 key strategies and 30 goals. You can see Tammy has quite a few of these. At the last commission meeting, I think she went over pretty much every single one of these as her projects that she's working on. We had done a customer benchmark or survey a year or so ago where they came in and looked at all the customer service operations and recommended a number of improvements, and we've included each of those in here. We have some items in here for customer segmentation, doing targeted marketing campaigns. The new thing within marketing is customer journey management. When somebody comes to your counter, your website, what's that journey through to get to what they were looking for? And you want to streamline that, and you want to make it as pleasant an experience as possible. So we're going to do that. Then we have a number of items that will be responsibility of Michelle Nall, who was just up here. Most of this is automation of our customer information systems in order to reduce the workload on customer service employees and to be able to provide a faster response for customers. We have a number of items for where customers come in, touch points like at engineering counters. So we want to have some goals to reduce the time people have to wait to get a plan check or get a new service.
Staying healthy.
Sorry.
It can feel complicated.
I don't know what that is.
They don't leave you alone.
Well, so we're going at those. We're looking at those things, like minimize average duration of completed customer requested electric installations. That's one that I mentioned. We have similar items for water. Minimize average duration of water leak repair cycle time. 95% of the time we'd like to have it done within 6 hours. workforce. So we have looked at a number of items in the workforce. We would like to have a standardized training program in place for each department would have their own set of courses and different types of training personnel and various classifications would all receive and would keep track of their progress. Have an employee recognition program. Update the position descriptions. There's a lot of position descriptions that are years old, especially in IT. They might be 15 years old, and the titles don't match the market anymore. I know our city IT just went through a process of looking at theirs, so we'll look at ours as well. Reliability. We have a number of things under here. There's a couple upgrades to Unit 9. Of course, there's the Grayson repowering. You know, we have a date of June 23, but that's subject to so many different things. Renew and maintain transmission and distribution system. So develop a 5-year capital improvement plan by the end of this year. And then we have a number of items that would link to that plan, like how many feeder conversions we do each year.
And just to interrupt you, Craig, I think if you go back and think about those capital improvement lists you just saw, those are tying into all of, if not many of these.
Excuse me, may I ask a question here?
Sure, anytime.
Yeah, about this reclosure and capacitor bank, conversion. So you're intended to use more reclosers or eliminate reclosers?
That would be a question for someone with more knowledge than myself.
Dan Scorza is coming up to answer that for you.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Dan Scorza. I'm the Assistant General Manager for the electric side. The question that was asked about the reclosures, ideally what you want to do in a power system is to be able to isolate where fault happens. Reclosers allow you to segment your power system in smaller areas. Reclosers will only isolate the area where the fault occurred. So by putting more reclosers in, that's the plan, is to be able to isolate so that if an outage occurs, it doesn't take out the entire feeder. So we do have reclosers now in the system, but we want to make sure that we have it in all the places where they need to be. And part of that is also automating them so that automation would also help us with wildfire mitigation, in that in those instances where there's heightened risk, we can remotely set the reclosures to close only once or not reclose after a fault. Therefore, we would have to inspect the area where it had a fault to make sure that there's no risk of starting wildfire if the line is re-energized. So the automation of that, putting in more reclosers to isolate areas so that we have fewer customers affected. Capacitor banks, similar way in that voltage issues occur throughout the distribution system. You can't just put one capacitor bank at the power plant and then assume that capacitor would adjust the voltage throughout the distribution system. To ensure that we have the proper voltage throughout the distribution system, we will be looking at technologies, either smaller capacitors or capacitor banks that would sit on top of the poles on the distribution system that would be distributed throughout the city, that would either be engaged or disengaged depending on what's happening with the voltage. If it's too high, it's disengaged. If the voltage is too low, capacitors are added to support the voltage. Therefore, we'll be having a plan looking at different equipment that we will be adding to the distribution system. That's what those two items would be. So reclosers.
So how many stages you have for reclosers, 2 or 3?
So on current feeders, it depends. I'm aware of 3 on one feeder. Each one's set with protective devices. So if a fault occurs on the furthest most part of a feeder, the first recloser would go, just isolate the first one-third of the line. It would leave the other 2 portions of the line energized. If you don't have reclosers, you trip the entire feeder. And sometimes we could have more than 1,000 customers on the feeder. So
Thank you very much for explaining.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks. So, reliability, we were talking about, we do have the wildfire fire mitigation plan on there. Have that done by January 2020. In water, we talked about the pipeline management program, valve replacements earlier. Sustainability, we do have time of use rates. We've adjusted them in the last COSA, and they get better every year going forward. And so we want to put together a program to aggressively promote that. It's time of use for us is voluntary, so we hope to get a certain percentage of people to enroll, but, you know, it's, like I said, it's voluntary, so we'll see. We want to aggressively promote our energy efficiency programs and meet our annual energy efficiency targets each year. Generally, we exceed those, so I think we'll be all right there. We have water conservation goals. We like to install at least 4 EV chargers, public chargers a year. I believe we have like 7 or 8 of them right now. We're putting another 3 in the city parking garage. We have some that are going to go down at the transportation center.
Do you have any going in at GCC,
Jeez.
Glendale Community College?
I knew I had Herbert here for a reason. I know, we certainly would work with GCC to put some there, but
Good evening, Herbert Garcia, PBC manager. As far as the Glendale College, we currently don't have anything with them at this point, but we will certainly be open to any future projects with them.
Thank you.
Recycled water, install recycled system expansions identified in the master plan. Complete biogas renewable generation, that's kind of up in the air, I believe, Steve, is that?
Under review.
Under review. We want to put a large-scale battery down at Grayson. We want to meet our targets for procurement of renewables. And then we're looking at clean energy programs, so large solar, demand response, residential solar, energy efficiency. We're looking at all those items. Automation, we want to update our technology roadmap. We had done one some years back. Basically, the roadmap would look at all the different technologies, computer systems that we have, and then recommend how we might consolidate and save money and update with the eye towards cybersecurity and all those kind of things too. These items, if you want to know about SCADA or OMS, DMS, I'll bring these guys back up here. Let's see. Steve talked about the AMI update. I mean, the goal there would be to fix the water, but with a backhaul system that the electric could then use. And then over time, we're going to have to update the electric meters. So once we had a backhaul that could communicate with both, we could just slowly replace electric meters over 10 years or so. And we have a goal of automating 100% of the feeders. That was Dan talking about reclosers and such by 2030. That's basically what we have right now in the plan. If you have any questions or
We'll be bringing
input.
this back to you probably quarterly, and you'll see the red, yellow, and green that will start to show progress. So that'll be, at this point in time, we'll see some of these are longer term. So we're going to kind of see maybe twice a year is where you see more activity and more progress. So we're going to play with it a little bit and see what best fits. But we will be back on some regular schedule to give you updates on our progress.
Question, this is a very aggressive and impressive strategic plan. I've been involved in a number of strategic planning processes, and I know that it should be achievable, but also a real challenge. And failure to meet all the goals is not a sign that it hasn't been successful. So my compliments to the department for putting together a very comprehensive strategic plan. My question is, has this been approved? Is this a new plan, and has this been approved by the city council, or will it be?
It is a new plan. It doesn't require approval, but we're presenting it to you, and the likelihood is that we haven't, I don't know that we'll present it to the council because that's kind of the work at this level.
Okay.
When we do our annual budget, you saw in there that was under the title accomplishments, but really what that is are some real specific goals for the department. Out of this comes those 5 or 6, and so that's where the council then gets involved. So they're looking kind of more at the bigger picture. We're a little bit more in the weeds here with you on the details.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd like to thank everybody back here who worked on this.
Yeah, it was a great effort. They did a great job. Craig led this.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, this was a very detailed and excellent report.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah, I actually have a couple of questions.
Oh, okay.
I actually want to also commend you for putting together a well strategic plan. But I'm curious if you, either in the vision and mission statement, could look at adding affordability. I think it's key in making sure that we stay reliable, we have good customer service, it's sustainable, innovative, but also should be affordable.
Yeah, we can.
That's an excellent point, because our 3-legged stool in water and power is reliability, sustainability, and affordability. So
Right.
I think we missed one of our legs, but we'll get that in there.
Yeah, I think that was key. And then just sticking to the CARE program, and I know that's important in making sure that we reach as many folks in that area. But, I would also look to see on the federal side, what programs we can follow along in terms of one specific that I'm reminded of is schools. For any child who has a free lunch program, that household probably qualifies. And, that's an avenue, and if we start thinking in that manner,
Sure.
I think we can.
I'll see if that's what typically when we do the low income, if you qualify for any federal or
Correct.
state program, we consider you qualified. But I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah,
we'll
so if
look
you
into it.
maybe look at the school district, and that may be a partner as well.
Sure.
Could be one. And then I have another question. Are we benchmarking against other utilities as well on some of these goals, and making sure that we are aligned and have the ability to even benchmark ourselves with other municipalities?
I know that SCAPA, well, I'll have to ask Herbert, but when I would go to the SCAPA public benefit meeting, they would always put a document together every year that looked at spending on low-income programs, energy efficiency programs, solar programs. I know we do that for California Energy Commission in those areas.
We actually benchmark in a number of areas.
Right.
So you've got reliability benchmarking through FERC and other agencies, and then Craig will have his PBC benchmarking, the CEC energy efficiency benchmarking. So we have a number of different areas where we do compare. And we used to have a real long list of key performance indicators, some of them a little bit mundane, where we would use those. But we found that again, the really telling numbers are those that we're actually required to do either through FERC and NERC and through the other agencies. But we'll see where we can tie that into here, at least to give you, maybe that's a feature part of our update with you, is say, in this particular case, in this category, we checked out with the other 3 utilities in our area, and this is where they were in those areas.
I think that'd be great.
We have looked at APPA for financial rate
APPA
ratios.
is the national, and so that's always, that's nice to see that, I think, but sometimes, especially when you live where we live,
Yes.
you're you're in a different world, literally, when it comes to the electrical utility in different parts of the country, depending on where their energy sources come from and their availability and how they structure different things. It's a little different, but I think if we can get at least maybe at the CMUA level from California,
Sure.
that might help as well.
And then last question on the workforce goal. I think it's strategy number 2, goal number 4, like many industries and companies, there is an aging workforce, folks who are getting ready to retire. Just wondering if there's a knowledge transfer program that Glendale Water and Power is taking on, so that we make sure that knowledge from the current workforce is passed on to those who are just starting their careers, and make sure we have that ability to transfer that knowledge, whether it's in the field or here in the office.
And we are doing that. Succession planning is now an ongoing exercise for us, and I think for everybody.
Right.
But Steve Nersessian, who's here, he's going systematically through at my direction with each of the individual sections, divisions, and the entire department, making sure that we're lining ourselves up, knowing where, to the best of our every indication we have, where folks are getting ready to leave, and if they've given us a timeline. One of our issues is making sure that we are attracting and retaining the young talent so that we can train them. Because the last thing we want to do is not be able to do that and have people come in and pass that tribal memory down and then have it leave.
Mm-hmm.
Not only does it leave with the person retiring, now the person you've trained to replace them is gone too. So we've got to make sure that we're sustaining our workforce for the future as well. So it's an important issue for us, and one we work on regularly.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Craig.
So next item.
5, oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Commission may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The general manager may refer the matter to the appropriate staff for investigation and report.
You have a card?
I do not have any cards.
What's next?
I have a kind of, I was just thinking, I have a question.
Sure.
So from one hand, it was said that most of the money comes from the people. And from other hand, we said we have surplus money. Is there any way to reduce the burden on people?
We do that. So if you remember our last rate schedule, it was very, we had a 0 in the first year. So part of the reserves, one aspect of the reserves is rate stabilization. So we drew down on our reserves in order to reduce the increase in the rates based on the COSA. So you see what you have, what you're projecting, how much you need to meet that. So instead of just saying, it would be a 5% increase in rates, we said 0, 1, 1.5, 2, and then use part of our reserves to help offset that so that we were providing some relief. And then we'll find ourselves, once we make decisions on Grayson and where we're at, we'll find ourselves in a place where we can get a little bit better beat on the exact reserve number we need. But absolutely, we used that in our last COSA and drew down on the reserves in order to limit the percentage increase in the rates.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
So,
And a COSA is a cost of service analysis, correct?
Prior to developing a rate schedule.
Okay.
But it actually works out very well because it gives you, in our case, we're a 5-year plan. That's what our standard is. It gives you a five-year pro forma. And that's why our budget is a little unique in water and power. With few exceptions, we hold true to that COSA. That's my desire. I don't want to be jumping all around and then all of a sudden saying we didn't get enough revenue and maybe we needed to raise the rates more. No. That's what we decided.
It was so hot, we had to rate,
We have reserves to handle those up and down situations, but I want to stick to that COSA as much as possible. My staff will, you probably see them shaking their head. And that's all the guy asked us. Is it in the COSA? Is that how the COSA was? Is that the, and so they're like, yes. But it's very important for me to do that. And so it is the law, but actually it's worked very well to our benefit. And it's a pretty heavy burden undertaking to do it, but it's well worth it. And then it sets us on a course for 5 years, and with little variation, we're ready for emergencies if we have those. Catastrophic, obviously, we don't have that, but we'll deal with that if it ever happens. In the meantime, it's a great planning tool for us.
thank you very much. Next item.
6, agenda forecast.
So So let me, the July meeting, which is on the 1st, I believe it is, and that's vacation week. So Catalina is going to be reaching out to see about a date for, we're going to use July for essentially a special meeting to discuss the clean energy RFP and the integrated resource plan. She'll be reaching out to you to see, will you, if you're available that first week of July. If not, where can we get you? I have to tell you that I'm going to really be focusing on those first 2 weeks. I don't want to go a whole lot further than that because we have commitments to come back to council. And so I want to make sure that you see it and that there's time between when you see it and when the council sees it for folks to digest anything they may have heard or for us to respond to any questions you may have.
Well, other items, okay, go ahead.
What I was going to say is, because I've got a calendar for July 1st, are you suggesting that it might, that's not available?
No, it's available
Okay.
if the three of you who are eligible to participate are available.
I can tell you right now I am, but I have a problem starting on the 2nd
Okay.
for the next
Well, that makes
week or
it
so. I hope the other two are available.
Okay. Well, we have been talking about previous time. We have been talking about a transmission line report.
Uh-huh.
And you promised that.
That will be coming up. I haven't put it on the agenda because the August agenda, now we're going to push that water item there. So I'm going to come back and I'll fit it in here somewhere. Tentatively, I was going to put it in the August. So I'm just going to go back and fit, because a couple of the August items are actually mandates that we do, the water quality in those. So I want to make sure that we don't take, that we have enough time to digest and present the transmission and not get so it'll be August or September, even though I know we have September down here as a we don't have a special meeting. We may have a special meeting. That's a Labor Day conflict, but we can get outside of Labor Day and then come back and have it. I'd really like to dedicate the meeting to just talking about transmission, have Mark Young come in here, some of you are familiar with Mark, and have him present and talk a little bit about that.
Can I also suggest, if we're going to be talking about transmission, also talking about fire mitigation, now that the legislation is done and the governor's weighed in, I'd like to get a little more detail on how it affects us.
And it's absolutely, those two are intertwined.
Perfect.
So we because our transmission could very well be impacted even more than it is now because of decisions that are made to try to mitigate for potential fire damage.
Great.
So that has now become linked.
Thank you.
Almost inextricably.
And just to answer, Commissioner Watson, July 1st is good with me, so I don't know who else is left.
Mr. Avanesian, and we need all three, so it has to be unanimous.
Okay, well.
So.
Are you free?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, we will set that date. Thank you.
I was going to keep for the
little
last
arm
moment.
twisting. All right, we got it. There we go.
One less thing for Catalina to.
Well, absolutely, and not knowing that Commissioner Watson will be have some scheduling problems after the 1st, it'd be great to get that taken care of. Thank you very much for that, and she thanks you, I think, as well.
There is another item that we have been talking about that I don't know we have covered on that, utility modernization.
Yes. So Craig Keenan, who came up here, that's one of the, he gives a rather, I think we've been trying to do it a couple times a year to give you an update on that. And so he'll come up, we haven't, I don't think we've done one in a while, but he'll come up and talk about that and our EV charging infrastructure, some of the grid work we're doing, those type of programs that we've put into place and that we continue to promote.
Because you mentioned that we don't have, we have water master plan, but we don't have for electricity.
Capital. It's a capital master plan. So we haven't had one. We've had not a true master plan. We've done it on 2 to 3 year planning periods. So we wanted to put together a comprehensive master plan, and that's what we're going to do in this year's budget. But that's all related to capital improvement. Modernization, you're right, it can include grid upgrades and infrastructure upgrades, but what the modernization that we are talking about is mainly non-infrastructure related. For instance, in Adams Hill, along with the work we just did, we've been working for over 2.5 years modernizing that, going from 4 kV to 12 kV in that particular neighborhood, replacing poles and transformers up there as well. So we can give you, we can roll that in as part of maybe when we talk to you about the master plan. Because we'll bring it to you when it's complete and present it to you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. I think next item. Is there any?
Covering the rest of the agenda items, is that what we're doing? Agenda forecast, so.
Do we have anything?
July 1st so far, right?
We have July 1st, and then you see August, and I'm going to come back to you because I'm trying to juggle the transmission issue. So looking ahead to, we've got July, we'll have August and September. After that, it's, I think, what we have down here is not going to change a whole lot until we get a little bit closer and see what we have done.
If there is no comment on this forecast, let's go to the next item.
7, adjournment.
Is there a motion for that?
I move. Okay.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
Adjourn.
Thank you.